Welcome to this edition of the Stories to Tell podcast. In this episode, our special guest is Judi Walker. Judi has a very heartwarming and inspiring story that results from her deciding to take a chance. Because by taking that chance, she has something miraculous happen in her life. She gets to meet her birth family and her biological father, who, get this, doesn't even know she exists. And it all starts with a kit from Ancestry.com. Okay, where was home?
I was born in Salt Lake City in 1964, and I was adopted a couple months later. And I remember growing up knowing I was adopted. I have a younger brother. He was also adopted, different set of birth parents, but we both grew up knowing that we were adopted. So it was just one of those things, like you have blue eyes, blonde hair, and you're adopted. It's just, was just kind of what we always knew. Did your adopted parents then at some point in time, did they sit you down and say, hey, they had that conversation with you about having been adopted? I don't remember the specific conversation. I just remember growing up knowing I was adopted. And the way it was explained to me is that I was picked. My mom and dad got to pick me and my brother. Of course, I wanted them to take my brother back because I didn't want him, but they did. So there's that. But it was just one of those things. I always grew up knowing that I was adopted and what that meant.
Nice. So as you got older, let's say into your teenage years or early 20s or something, did you ever have that wonder in the back of your head? Where are my birth parents? Or was it even part of your thought process?
Not really. Yeah. No, it wasn't growing up. I have a great family. I had a wonderful life growing up. And my feeling was, I don't need to know. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have that feel like there's that hole or there's that emptiness. And I didn't have that.
Awesome.
There were times I wondered, I wonder who they are and I wonder why they put me up for adoption.
Okay.
But as I got older and I realized they made that decision and I need to respect that decision and not try and find them. There was a reason why, and maybe I'm not meant to know that reason. And I was like, okay, I'm all right with that. So going back to when my parents adopted me, they were told by the agency that I was almost 100% Norwegian. And for anyone who has seen me, that is not the case. I don't look Norwegian. I do have blonde hair and blue eyes, but that's about the extent of it. And my mother was she's, no, you're Norwegian. And I went, Mom, I'm not. I don't look like I am. I'm not. She said, well, yes, you are. So in 2016, she got me an Ancestry.com DNA test kit to prove to me that I am, in fact, Norwegian.
So this was Mom making a point.
This was Mom. And I love my mother. She's awesome. She's funny. But she was like, I'm going to prove to you that you're Norwegian. So, bless her heart. So I sent the sample in, and I got the results back. I got the email that I had my Ancestry.com results. And I looked at it, and I started laughing because it was mainly German, Irish, French, a little bit of English, some Russian in there, and 4% Scandinavian. Not even the country of Norway, but the whole region was just 4%.
Uh-oh.
And so I called my mom and I said, hey, Mom, I got my DNA results back. And she said, well, what are they? And I said, well, why don't you come over to the house and I'll show them to you because it's on a map and it's really kind of cool to look at the map. So she came over and I showed her the map. And I said, Mom, I'm only 4% Scandinavian. And she said, oh, well, that's not right. And my brother and sister and I, we just started laughing. So it's like, Mom, it's science. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. It's just 4%. And who knows what percentage was Norwegian. They didn't even break it down by that. So one of the things that was on the email is, do you want to load your DNA profile into your Ancestry.com account? And I had an Ancestry.com account.
Now, when they say load your DNA profile in, that's like your unique self.
Yes.
That's
just
somehow
me.
loaded up there. And why would you do that? Like, why?
I figured, why not?
And what's the potential outcome of doing that, I guess?
The potential outcome is you find matches for long-lost relatives, really. And when I agreed to share my DNA profile, I didn't think I'd get any hits.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay.
I am not genetically related to either the Chase, which is my maiden name, or Lawson, my mother's maiden name. Family tree. There's no genetic link to the Chase Lawson family tree. So my feeling was, sure, why not? I'm not gonna get any hits. What's the harm?
Yeah, there you go.
Thing,
There wasn't a moment of was there a moment of curiosity though? You said, hey, well, you never know what might happen, or you're just like, well, I'm just helping Ancestry.com's website out.
That's pretty much what it was.
Okay.
And I figured at the time, I was in my early 50s, and I figured if my birth family was going to look for me, they would have looked by now.
Yeah,
that was my feeling.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Maybe somebody saw some paperwork in a trunk in the attic that, oh my gosh, we have a long lost sister.
Right,
We've got to find her. That kind of thing. And so I figured, nobody's looking for me. What's the harm? So I started getting these random matches, like fifth cousin twice removed, just really random matches.
And then when you get a match, you'd get an email that says, hey, there's somebody might be related to you or
yes,
something. Okay.
They say that this person, and everyone in Ancestry.com has a username. It's not Judi Walker. It's, Real Mom or whatever my username was.
Got it.
And they would say, hey, Real Mom, you have a potential match from, Ski Bum 123 kind of a thing. And so I would reach out to Ski Bum 123 and say, hey, we've got this match. Do we have any relatives in common? And sometimes the names that they would mention, I had no idea who they were because they're not part of the Chase Lawson family tree.
Got it.
And it never dawned on me that I was being matched with people from my birth family. That didn't dawn on me because I never thought my birth family was in Ancestry.com.
Sure.
Again, if
Did
they
you
wanted
even know
to
their
find
last
me.
names?
No.
Oh, okay.
We
So
had-
this is
no.
completely blind to you.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
back in the 60s, they were closed adoptions. You didn't get any information at all.
Gotcha.
So I reached out to some of these people and I didn't recognize any of the names. And after a while, I just started ignoring them. I was
Yeah.
getting so many weird ones. And what happened is these emails were going to an old email address of mine that I didn't check, but maybe once a month or so.
Okay.
So on June 11th of 2018, I remember the day very well, I checked my old email and I had an email from Ancestry.com saying you have a potential match.
This is one of many points in Judi's story that is so powerful. She is at a monumental decision point in her life and needs to decide. Do I keep going to find out where this leads, or do I shut it down now and move along with my life? It's amazing to look back at our lives to reflect on the outcomes for critical decisions that we have made. And this is Judi's opportunity to take a chance, if she wants to see where this one will lead.
Normally, when I would see those, I wouldn't read them. I would just file them in my Ancestry.com folder and
You
just
get
say,
another one
I'll look at it
Ski
later.
Bum 123.
Yes,
Who knows?
I'll just look at it later. And I heard a voice right next to me say, read it. Clear as day. Wow. Read it. Wow. And it sounded like my dad's voice. And he passed in 2001. My adoptive father. He died March 31st, 2001.
Wow, I'm getting chills.
And so I heard, and it sounded like him. Wow. So I was like, okay, I'll read it. And I actually have it with me if you'd like for me to read it. It says, "Hi, Judith. My name is Shelley. Ancestry says that we are related. Actually, it says we are closely related. Okay, I looked even closer, and Ancestry says you are my grandparent, aunt, uncle, or half-sibling. Since I know you are not the first three, you might be the last option." And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then I thought, well, it's not a half sibling. It's got to be a cousin. Again, that was all the matches I was getting from Ancestry before were cousins.
But how did that? So you were saying, though, you were kind of freaking out, though, right?
I was freaking out.
What was going through your mind?
Like, this is a close family match. Wow. This is wow. I mean, that was all I could think about. And this actually was written by Shelley on May 21st. And as I said, I didn't read it until June 11th. Yeah. So on May 26th, I get another email from her. It says, "Hi, it's Shelley again. I really do not want to bother you, but a few answers would really help my dad. A week ago Thursday, I looked into what Ancestry was calling close family. It was then that I realized Ancestry was saying we are half siblings. I contacted my sisters and picked their brains on how to proceed with the information." So I won't read the whole thing, but basically, they talked amongst themselves and were like, what do we do? What do we do with this information? What if she doesn't want to be found? What if she doesn't know she's adopted?
Right.
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 What do we do? I mean, she's a half sibling, so she's one of us, but what if she didn't want to be found?
Isn't that interesting? Because early, you were talking about you had an amazing childhood. So the idea of even wanting to reach out, and you had even, I think, shared that, you didn't want to cause any potential discomfort or even worse than that, perhaps to the family that provided you for adoption. And then that similarly, it sounds like now that on Ancestry.com, this biological family is reaching back out to you, had similar concerns. Oh my gosh, what if I reach out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What happens? And so they decided, well, we have to let our dad know. And it turns out that we are related on my birth father's side of the family. And so they decided, we have to tell our dad. We have to let him know there is this person walking around out there that is our half sibling. And it was a very difficult decision for them, but they did tell him. He had no idea I existed. Absolutely no idea that I was alive.
Now, just to clarify, this is your biological...
This is my biological father,
He had
Fred.
no idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
Fred
my
had
goodness.
no idea that I was out there. And from the email that I got from Shelley, it was disbelief. Well, that can't be. That can't be. That's not right. And he was dating a woman named Beverly, who is my birth mother. That's all I know about her. And they broke up in November of 63, and I was born in July of 64.
Oh, goodness.
And she never told him that she was pregnant with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So, here's this man.
That had to have rocked his world.
It did. I mean, he just turned 80 years old.
Whoa.
Or was going to be 80 in a couple of months. And all of a sudden, he has a 54-year-old daughter he didn't know about.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
And so
his immediate was, this obviously a mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Shelley did in the email, she said, I really don't want to bother you, but can you please provide some additional information so that I can talk to my dad about this and see if this is really what we think it is. Yeah. And so I do want to read that part because it just shows how sweet Shelley is. And I absolutely love her. The information I am requesting is your mother's name. You do not need to add her maiden name. Your year of birth, no exact date is needed. And the area you were born. You do not have to send the exact city. I know this is personal information, but like I said, I hope it helps Dad's memory. So I thought that was just so sweet of her to say, we're not looking for identifying information, just this. If you can provide that, that would really help a lot.
So were you getting the sense then that your biological dad, although he was saying, how can this be? He was still open to, well, let's pursue this for some closure. Shelley gets you to say, hey, maybe this is one big mistake. Right. Provide a little bit more information here.
Yeah.
And okay.
Exactly. And I was happy to provide it.
Yeah.
So I gave her everything. I mean, I gave her exact names. Well, actually what I said was, I don't know the name of my birth mother. I was adopted when I was a baby. And I gave her my exact birth date and exactly where I was born. And she said, she gave me her email, her personal email in there. And so when I read this, I was again freaking out, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Right.
And my fiance, Larry, was in the other room while I'm doing this. And he says, honey, are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, just a minute. And I keep reading, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my gosh. I was so excited. Like I said, I was freaking out when I read these 2 emails.
Because what was kind of going through your mind that, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet my biological dad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's still alive. My biological dad is still alive.
So that's what you were at this point going, I'm getting closer to meeting some real family here, including my dad.
Yeah. And it was thrilling to learn that I had sisters.
Oh,
and
yeah.
my father was alive. So I did reach out to Shelley at her email address, and I gave her all of that information. And the other thing that really struck me about Shelley is how brave she was to do this. She had no idea. And to just say, you know what, I have to reach out to this person.
I agree.
This person is my sister. I need to reach out to her. That took a lot of courage to do that.
And it seemed like she was, from what you're telling me too, doing it in a very sensitive way.
Yes.
Like almost, I'm kind of interested, are you? And if not, all the best kind of a thing, right?
Exactly.
But you both, sounds like you both had that same attitude, like, well, let's see where this might go.
Exactly. And so when I responded to her, I gave her my phone number, and we ended up talking. And it was so surreal to talk to her on the phone and think, oh my gosh, this is my sister. I have a sister. I have 3 sisters. Wow. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it was almost overwhelming.
Oh,
it was really almost overwhelming. My sister Lynn, she lives in Utah. My dad, and I call her my mom, his wife Stella, I love that woman. I just love her to pieces. They live in Utah as well. Shelley lives in Wyoming, and then the youngest sister, Jamie, she lives here in New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And she's only about 3 hours away. Wow. And so when I found that out, I was like, do you mean I have been within 3 hours of a sister that I didn't even know about? Yeah. It was just incredible. And so talking to them on the phone was just like, I can't believe I'm talking to a blood relative. I didn't think I would ever talk to someone I am genetically related to. And it was probably one of the best experiences. Wow. And then my dad emailed me. And
he did?
Yeah, he did.
How long since that Shelley's initial email did his email come?
It was just a few days after I responded to her. So I want to say it was
quick.
June 14th or 15th, I think, something like that.
Pretty quick.
So it wasn't too far off. And
oh my gosh, what did his email say?
It was like, hi.
Oh man.
My dad is a man of few words, but it was like, I was surprised to find out about you, and this is what I do for a living, and just kind of getting acquainted. And he said, I'd really like to talk to you if you would like to talk to me. Wow. And I, of course. And so I called him the next day.
Oh gosh. Were you prepping? I've been pacing around my house like for half a day. You know what I mean?
I was sweating like crazy. And then when I heard his voice, it was like, this is my dad.
Wow.
I haven't talked to a dad since 2001.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Right.
And so it was very emotional for me to talk to him, to think, I have another dad.
Wow.
I'm one of the few that get to have 2 amazing dads. And I have since learned that he's phenomenal. And it was just, like I said, it was surreal to talk to him. And so my sister Jamie called me, and she said, Mom and Dad are coming in to visit next weekend. Would you like to come down and meet all of us? I was like, yeah.
All right.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, of course I would. So I made plans to go down the following weekend. So I want to say, and I don't know why I didn't write the dates down. I want to say it was like the 20th or the 21st, something like that, of June.
This is moving pretty quick.
It is moving very fast.
Very fast.
Yeah, very fast. And so after all of this happened, when I got the first email, I emailed my best friend, Beth. And I said, you are not going to believe what just happened. And I told her the story, and she couldn't believe it. And so I've been able to talk to her this whole time about my feelings about these people, because I wasn't ready to tell them how I was feeling because I didn't know them that well.
Yeah.
You know?
And what were you kind of sharing with Beth? What was going on in your head? Yeah.
It's like, is this really happening? Am I dreaming? How is this possible that I have this whole family out there that I didn't even know about? And it was overwhelming, but in a really good way.
Were you concerned at all? It doesn't sound like, but were you concerned at all about, okay, I know I've kind of peeked through the door here, and now the door has just been flung wide open. Mm-hmm. Were you concerned at all to go, oh my gosh, I'd rather just close the door, or you were all in?
My feeling was, I hope they like me when they meet me.
Oh, yeah.
Because talking to somebody on the phone, emailing back and forth is different than seeing that person face to face.
Super nerve-wracking.
Yeah, super. So I said, yes, I'm absolutely going to go visit and meet everybody. And it was Dad and Stella. It was my sister Jamie, her husband, their son. And so, like I said, Jamie lives about 3 hours away. And so it was a very long drive. And it felt longer than 3 hours because I'm thinking, what are they going to think of me? What am I going to do? Do I hug them? Do I shake their hand? Well, what do I do? I don't know what I did. What do I do? So I got down there and, as I mentioned, Jamie has a son. And so I went up to ring the doorbell, and I hear this boy's voice behind me saying, "Are you my Aunt Judi?"
Oh, gosh.
And that was so emotional for me because
I bet.
Before I was divorced, and I was divorced in 2015, my ex-husband's youngest sister had 2 daughters, and I was Aunt Judi. When I divorced him, his family disowned me, and they stopped talking to me. And so I stopped being Aunt Judi. And so when my nephew said that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm Aunt Judi again. Yeah. I'm somebody's Aunt Judi. And that was really exciting as well.
And what an opening line from the mind of I don't know how old
the child. 10?
That's what I'm saying.
10 or 11?
Just, are you my Aunt Judi?
Are you my Aunt Judi?
What a way to break the ice.
I know. And I was like, yeah, honey, I am. Oh. They said, well, okay, come on in.
Okay. We've been waiting for you.
And so I walked into the house, and my dad's standing in the kitchen, and he looks at me, and he said, "You must be my kid."
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and said, "You must be my dad."
Oh, my gosh.
And he gave me the biggest hug, and we hugged each other for what seemed like hours. It was just a few minutes, but I didn't want to let go because it's like, this is my dad. And it felt like my dad was hugging me, not like my biological father. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Well, keep talking on that.
It wasn't awkward. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was home. It was home. It's really what it felt like.
Amazing.
And
getting chills again.
And so I hugged him for a while. And then his wife, Stella, she hugged me next. And her first words to me were, "You are a wonderful surprise."
Oh, man.
And I'm sorry, I get choked up every time I think about that because what a wonderful, loving, gracious thing to say to your husband's daughter that you didn't even know existed, that neither of you knew existed.
That could have gone 5 million different directions, which most probably could have been pretty difficult, right?
And just that she gave me a big hug. I mean, she hugged me really tight. And that's what I mean about her is that she is loving, caring, wonderful. She had never met me before, didn't know about me until about 2 weeks prior. And those were her first words to me.
Just people loving on people.
Exactly. And I just felt so welcome. Like I had only been away for a few years, it was that feeling. And then I hugged my little sister, Jamie, and that felt really good. So I'm like, this is my little sister. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so it was so neat to meet them and to sit down and talk with them and get acquainted. But again, it was almost like I felt like I already knew them.
Wow.
They were familiar to me when I walked in the house. I just didn't know their story. But I felt like I definitely belong there. Absolutely belong there.
That's so great.
And we talked a little bit, and then we realized we were hungry, so we went to get pizza. And I walked in with my dad, and I asked him, I said, what do you want me to call you? Oh. And he said, well, you can call me anything you want. And I said, how about I call you Dad? Wow. And he said, I'd really like that. And it was right away, because as soon as he hugged me, this is my dad. This isn't Fred. This is my dad. This is Dad. Wow. And so since I have the two, I always referred to the man who raised me as Daddy. So that was Daddy and then Dad. And it was just such an amazing, it was just a quick overnight trip, but to catch up on everything. Wow. And Jamie shared some things with me that my grandmother, my dad's mother, Edna, and my grandfather, Henry. My grandmother, Edna, was a bookkeeper. And it just so happens that's what I do for a living.
There you go.
And
comes down in the genes there.
It does. And they kept telling me how much I look like Edna. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the resemblance. And so I saw some pictures of her and I went, wow, that's a resemblance. Wow. And so now it's like, now I know who I look like. And so that's kind of cool too.
This is such an incredible story of discovery and newfound family. But I also wanted to know how Judy's mom reacted to this amazing news. I imagined it had to be very emotional for her. So in this last segment, Judi has a chance to share what it has meant for her mom as well.
Hardest part, though, about this was having to tell my mom. Being an adoptive mother, I have an adopted son. My youngest is adopted. It is a fear that someone will come and take your child away. And that fear subsides as they get older, but it never really goes away. And so I knew I had to tell my mom, and I waited a couple of days. And I finally...
After the visit?
No, this was after I found out. So this was like
even before the visit.
Yeah, I needed to let her know because I was getting ready to post it on Facebook. Once my dad told Stella, then Shelley said, you can post whatever you want on Facebook, but we want Mom to hear from Dad first.
Yeah.
So I sat down with my mom and I said, there's something that I need to tell you. And she said, okay, what was it? And I said, do you remember that DNA test you made me take?
Your Norwegian proof?
Yeah, the one that says I'm not.
Yeah.
I said, I uploaded the results to the Ancestry.com account and I got a hit, Mom. And it turns out my birth father and 3 of my sisters found me. Wow. And she just had this look on her face like, oh no.
Oh, really?
She was not happy.
Oh, goodness.
She started crying. And I tried to reassure her, Mom, this doesn't mean I'm not part of your family anymore. This is a bonus family for both of us. And I don't think she really believed me. She struggled with that for a while.
I bet.
And she cried and we talked. And I said, Mom, I'm not replacing you. I know it seems like it right now, but I promise you I'm not replacing you. I'm really not. So she was very anxious for me to go down there and meet them because, again, she thought I would just toss her aside.
There you go.
I didn't need her anymore. I had this whole other family. And it was very difficult to get her to feel comfortable with them. She didn't want to talk to them. She didn't even really want to talk about them all that much. And so, and I respected that. And I was like, okay, she needs time to adjust and to process this whole thing. So in September of the same year, 2018, my dad and Stella and one of my nieces, they came for a visit to visit Jamie. And Jamie said, hey, they're coming back for a visit and you can meet our other niece. Why don't you come down? And I said, you know what? I'm going to bring my mom.
Oh, here we go.
She has to meet you guys. She needs to understand you're not taking me away. And so I called Mom and I said, hey, how would you like to go to Jamie's and meet my dad and Stella? Oh, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, I really think you should. You need to see them. You need to meet them. And you need to see me interact with them to understand I'm not leaving you.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of back and forth. And we went down and she was very anxious the whole time. I mean, she was just almost like vibrating with all this nervous energy. And so we got to Jamie's and she walked in. And my dad was right there. And he looked at her and he said, thank you. Oh. And my mom instantly relaxed. And Stella came up and gave her a big hug. Oh. And my dad hugged her and Jamie hugged her. And it was really interesting just to watch her realize that, wow, they're not taking my daughter. They're not.
They're the best at opening lines. This whole family.
No, they're incredible.
What are you supposed to say in these uncomfortable situations? Thank you.
You'd think there was like a script writer or something for this, and there wasn't. It was them being who they are. They're very genuine, caring, loving people. They just are at their core. And it was really neat because they sat down and they started talking about when my mom and dad adopted me, and they were living in Bountiful, Utah at the time. And my dad lived nearby. I can't remember where, but he lived nearby. And they started talking, oh, did you ever go to this grocery store? Oh, yeah, that's where I went. Did you ever go to this ice cream place? Oh, yeah, we took Judi there all the time. And they figured out that at some point, their paths crossed. And I didn't mention it sooner, but the relationship that my dad had with Beverly was well before he married Stella or even met Stella. So it wasn't like there was some indiscretion. Yeah. It was just, it was a completely separate relationship that was over that he didn't know anything about. But it was really neat to see the three of them, my three parents, talking and realizing how much they had in common. Yeah. And it was just amazing. And so I talked to Mom and I talked to her when I got back. I said, so what do you think? She said, they're delightful. They're wonderful. And she loves them like crazy. And she talks to Dad and Stella. And she loves Jamie. I think she loves Jamie more than she loves me, actually. And so we've gone down to Jamie's for Thanksgiving a few times, and Phil and Jamie just spoil her rotten. And it's amazing. And then in 2019, the summer of 2019, Jamie and I drove to Utah, and I got to meet almost everybody else. I have nieces and nephews. I have great nieces and nephews. I have this huge family that has just welcomed me in. Not one of them has said, oh, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. They've all been just absolutely amazing.
Family. Sounds like an amazing, loving family for
sure.
And
so I'm truly, truly blessed that Shelley took that chance to reach out to a perfect stranger, and they've made me a part of their family. And I am forever grateful to all of them. And I absolutely believe that if Daddy were still alive, he and Dad would be very good friends. Very similar personalities, very similar work ethic, child rearing strategies, all that. Very, very similar. And I think they would be very, very good friends to this day. And that was one of the things that my dad said after I met them. That first time, he and I had coffee the next morning out on Jamie's front porch. And he said, I'm not here to take your dad's place. Yeah. He said, I'm here to carry the ball moving forward. And it was just such a sweet thing for him to say. And he said, tell me about him.
Oh my gosh.
And so I told him a little bit about,
Yeah.
what Daddy was like. And he said, we would definitely be friends.
Wow.
Absolutely. So it's a miraculous story that, and it's what I always joke, when all the daughters are together, where we call ourselves Fred's daughters. And when we're all together and we're just raising all kinds of Cain, and Dad just looks exasperated. And I'm like, it's Shelley's fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's all Shelley's fault. But in fact, it's actually my mother's fault because she's the one that got the DNA test kit in the first place.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Stories to Tell podcast. There are a lot more episodes coming your way, so be sure to follow so you don't miss out on the next shows. All the best.